Good morning, Mr. Smith. My name is Jappy, and I'm a first semester nursing student. How are you doing today? Well, I'm glad to hear that you're doing great. I just wanted to talk to you about foodborne illnesses and food safety. Well, I'm glad to hear you would like to know more about it. Did you know that almost 1 in 6 Americans get hospitalized or die due to foodborne illnesses? That's why learning about food safety is very crucial, and I'm glad that you wanted to know more about it. Mr. Smith, would you mind telling me what types of meals do you like to have in a day, or how do you eat food? Well, Jappy, I like to cook my own food, and I eat cooked food at home. I rarely ever eat out. Well, I'm great to hear that. I usually enjoy cooked food myself. So let's talk a little bit about how to correctly store your cooked food. Now, the benefits of storing cooked food is, number one, they stop the risk of bacterial growth. Once the food is cooked, we only recommend keeping them out for 2 hours and then refrigerating them or freezing them. Any time after 2 hours, the bacteria starts to grow and replicate inside the food, which means that it would not be healthy to eat if it's not refrigerated after the 2-hour point. Now, if you do store your food, it is financially a healthy choice because you wouldn't have to use so many groceries, so many energy, so many resources to make food again. It is financially better. Also, cooking food and storing it will also save you time the next day that you would usually spend on preparation. So I'm glad to hear that you cook your own food. I want to talk to you more about how to store your food. Let's start with meats. I do see that you do enjoy meats and veggies both equally. So with meats, we need to store them in the fridge, again, 2 hours after they're done cooking. And in the fridge, they are good for up to 2 to 3 days. So let's say you make a pot of chili. So you can put it in the fridge after 2 hours and then just take a small bowl of however much serving you want and reheat it like that. Now with meat specifically, when you reheat it, it needs to be served piping hot or at the very least 75 degrees Celsius so that it can kill any bacteria that may have entered or may have replicated inside the food itself. Now, if you do freeze your food or your meats, they can stay good for up to 4 to 6 months. Again, now when you are ready to eat your meat again, take your meat out. When the meat needs to be thawed, it can only be thawed in the refrigerator. Do you usually refrigerate and thaw your meats? No, I usually just keep it on the counter and then poke it with a fork to see if the meat's soft, and then I microwave it. I would like to say that it is a myth that if you microwave it, the bacteria will be killed off. The only way bacteria is killed off is through heat, and a microwave won't do that. However, if you do have a microwave oven and you use that to heat your food, that can potentially work for you. Now, I would like to say you should thaw your meat in the refrigerator. Once you take it out of the freezer, just put it in the fridge for up to 1 to 2 hours until, again, the meat is soft, and then you should heat it up. And like I said, serve it piping hot so that no bacteria is present. Now, let's talk a little bit about rice. Rice is one of the easiest foods where bacteria can start growing. It's because usually folks don't cook rice to the proper temperature where it needs to be so that the bacteria are killed. So let's say you cook rice. We'll follow the 2-hour rule. You put it in the fridge or the freezer. Now, if you choose to refrigerate your rice, you should consume it within the next 2 days at the very maximum before throwing it out. If you put it in the freezer in an airtight container or an airtight bag such as this, you can consume it for up to 2 months. When you take out the frozen rice, you could either boil it or you can put it in the microwave and heat it up, or on the pan as well, and heat it up to about 60 degrees Celsius. When you take the rice out, it should be in clumps or in a brick form. When you cook it, the clumps should automatically break. So that can be a good point for you to judge whether the rice is cooked or not, that the rice starts falling apart and it's no longer clumped. But also just let it cook for a little longer and check the temperature as well, that it is at the very minimum 60 degrees Celsius. I had a quick question, Jappy. Now, I've heard that you're supposed to let the food cool down before you put it in the fridge. Some foods don't cool at 2 hours and they need to stay out longer. Is that true? That's a brilliant question, Mr. Smith. Actually, you can immediately put your food into a container and put it in the refrigerator right after it is cooked. There is no such thing that you need to let it cool down before you put it in the refrigerator. However, there's only one point where you do have to cool your food down before refrigerating or freezing it, and that is with vegetables. Now, once you cook your vegetables, you do have to let it cool down at room temperature, or if you're trying to freeze your cooked vegetables, just run it under cold water once you drain the excess water so that the cooking process is stopped, and then put it in an airtight container or a bag like such, and then freeze it. Veggies are good for up to 8 to 10 months if they are frozen. If you do have your veggies refrigerated, you should consume them in 5 to 7 days. Again, heating them up properly. Veggies are recommended to be boiled when you are cooking them. Oh, I did not know that was a myth. Thank you. Now, I've also heard that usually if the food smells or looks fine, it should be edible and good to eat. Is that a myth too? I think you're catching on to it, Mr. Smith. Yes, that is a myth. Just by looking at the food, because there are some bacteria that do not cause any changes to the smell or the sight of the food, but actually do infest the food. So it is better to follow these guidelines instead of just relying on the smell and the sight of the food to see if they're good or not. And also, when in doubt, just toss it out. Now, I did want to go over a couple ways you can store your food. The first option is your regular bag that closes like this. This should be used for when you are refrigerating rice or vegetables. The other alternative to refrigerating is an airtight container like such. Now, to show you how to close the airtight container, once you put your food inside of this, you should shut it super tight and make sure that all of this is aligned and not wobbly like this. And just do it a couple more times until you hear loud clicks like such, and then your food should be safe. Now, I will be putting some water in this and closing it and showing you what an airtight container looks like when water is in there, or liquid. Now, a good way to see if this is closed properly, as you can see, there is water in here. If you just flip it over, no water will spill because this is completely closed. And that's how you're supposed to store your food. Just make sure there is no air going in and out, and it's tightly secured. Now, Mr. Smith, I just wanted to show you what a freezer safe bag looks like. This is a refrigerator safe, and this is what a freezer safe bag looks like. Now, as you can see, it has a little tab on the top to close it so that it makes sure that, that no particles or microbes can get into there. So these particular bags are freezer safe bags. Now, they can be used in refrigerating stuff as well. However, the refrigerator safe bags cannot be used for frozen food. Now, do you have any questions? No, I do not. I think I understand. Great. Now, let's say you had cooked your veggies and you want to freeze them. What would be your next steps after you've frozen your veggies? After boiling them, I would run them under cold water to stop the cooking process and then put them in the freezer safe bag that has a tab on top. Great, that's absolutely great. Now, when you get your fruits and vegetables from outside, do you usually wash them, and how do you wash them? Yes, I try to wash the food that I get out, but I'm not always good with it. I usually just clean it when I'm about to eat it and just run it under water for a couple seconds and then cut the fruit and eat it, or cut the veggie and use it. Now, Mr. Smith, I would like to talk about better ways to wash your food because there are a lot of bacteria, germs, and microbes that live on the surface of the fruit and vegetables, and also there could be some insects inside which can cause foodborne illnesses. The first way is to rub the fruit under water for an extended amount of time. Now, this can be done under warm water so that you can remove the wax covering. For example, in apples, when the apple is shiny, that means it has a wax covering. You can just rub it under water for about 10 to 15 seconds to make sure that the germs, the microbes, and the wax layer is a little bit off. And even if you are not going to eat the fruit or the vegetable with the peel, you should wash it so that when you cut into the fruit, the germs from the outside layer don't get inside the edible part or the part that you wish to eat. Now, the best part about cleaning fruits is that once you clean them, you don't necessarily need to cook them like we discussed previously to kill the microbes. Since they are living on the surface, you can just cleanse it underwater or the other methods that I'm about to discuss, and you should be good. Now, you can either soak your fruits and vegetables in a big bowl of water for about an hour and a half, or you can use the rubbing method. The other method to clean your produce is by using external help, such as cleaning and washing products and soaps. Let me show you. Now, as you can see, and I'm going to share a brand that you can usually find at your local grocery store, Mr. Smith. This particular is called the Fruit and Veggie Wash. You basically just soak your vegetables, but you also spray the vegetables, rub them, and put them in water. Let them soak, and this usually has a vinegar base. So what the vinegar does, it reacts with the microbes, and it either kills them or removes them, detaches them from the surface, so that they're in the water and not on the vegetable surface. Now, the other way that you can wash your vegetables and your produce is with the help of a scrub. This is what a produce scrub looks like. Now, what you do with this, as you can see, the scrub over here goes on the surface, and all you have to do is scrub under running water, and it should remove. You can also use the spray, just spray the produce, scrub it nicely, and it should remove the wax layer, any germs or microbes that are on the produce itself. This is a wonderful way to clean your produce if you have got them fresh from the farm, or they still have some dirt on them, such as freshly harvested potatoes. Now, the other way that you can, again, clean your fruits and vegetables is with this mechanical device. It's also known as a machine washer. It basically uses ozonization to shake off the microbes on the surface of the produce. This is actually what is used in industrial places to clean foods, but now is available at a home size as well. So if you do not want to spend the time, or you don't have the time to clean them hand by hand, all you can do is just take a big bowl full of water, put your produce in there, and turn it on, and drop this in there for about 1 to 2 hours, as the device recommends, and it should clean your produce, and your produce should be good to eat. You don't necessarily have to use a wash with this. Now, this also comes in a big bowl shape as well, and the bowl shape looks something like this. As you can see, this is a basket. All you have to do is fill this with water, put your produce in the basket, drop it in there, turn the button on, and it will start the ozonation process to remove the germs. Which method do you think would work best for you and your lifestyle and your apartment, and which one would you think you'd be more feasible with? I do not like to stand and wash them because of some pain in my bones, so I would prefer getting the machine washer since it doesn't take a lot of time, and I can just put that, and I don't have to stand and wash them for a really long time. That's great. I'm glad to hear that. I would also like to use the scrub because if I don't have a lot of produce, I would just use the scrub. That's wonderful. Now, again, you take your produce, you use your brush, and then you just scrub it under water. And if you want to use some soap, you can just spray the soap and then scrub it. Would you mind showing me how you would do it? Yes, of course. The client does it correctly. That's great, Mr. Smith. You did it wonderfully. Mr. Smith, would you mind telling me what type of meats do you enjoy? What type of meat meals do you like to enjoy? Oh, yes, I certainly enjoy sushi and slow-cooked turkey. I like eating chicken as well. I enjoy oysters too. Now, because of raw meats carrying a very high risk with foodborne illness pathogens, let's talk about some alternatives that you could potentially eat and enjoy as well. Instead of eating raw meat sushi, you could eat cooked meat sushi. For chicken, be sure that the chicken is hot and piping hot and sizzling when it is served or when it is cooked and consumed, since that will make sure that no pathogens are alive in the product itself. Oysters, again, do carry a lot of foodborne pathogens as well, again, since it is raw meat. So if it is feasible, try to steer clear of the raw meats. Now, I would like to discuss that as we age, our immune system of the body weakens, so its reaction to foodborne pathogens would be slower and less than it was when we were younger. So it is crucial that we talk about the foods that you like and find alternatives, Mr. Smith, so that you are safe and foodborne illnesses do not affect you. Now, what type of dairy do you like? Do you consume dairy or do you like to use plant-based milks? Would you mind describing your dairy consumption to me, please? Yes, actually, I have a friend who has who gives me milk straight from his farm. He gives me cheese and yogurt and butter as well. He gets it fresh out of the cow, and it is the freshest that you will ever get. That's wonderful, Mr. Smith. Would you know if the milk is pasteurized or if they boil and then cool it down and boil it again? Do they tell you? Oh no, it is all natural. They do not boil it; they just give it straight to me. Now, Mr. Smith, again, unpasteurized. Pasteurization is basically a process where they heat the milk, cool it down, and then heat again to make sure that any pathogens that were alive are no longer alive, and then any bacteria that specially stays in milk, dairy, and bacillus and lactose is completely killed and sterilized. It is crucial that we switch to pasteurized milk since it is healthier and it is better for food safety. Well, I could eat milk or drink milk from the store since it may be cheaper than getting it from my friend. I'm glad to hear that, Mr. Smith. If you would like to switch to plant-based, you can do that as well. Just be sure that the milk is pasteurized, or even if you get it from your friend, ask them to pasteurize the milk if they can, so that no pathogens are in the product itself. Now, once you do purchase your milk for milk safety, you should not keep the milk on the counter for more than 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, you should put it back in the fridge. If you are using cheese in a cheese block, it is better to grate the whole cheese block and place the grated cheese inside a Ziploc bag and freeze it, which then the cheese will be good for up to 8 to 10 months. Now, I do know that sometimes you do like to volunteer at the bookstore. What do you like to eat on your lunch when you're at the bookstore? Do you still eat home cooked meals? No, I usually eat hot dogs and the deli meat. Okay, now with hot dogs and deli meats, again, be sure that the meat itself is served very hot and it is not at room temperature, so that there are no pathogens on it or had time to replicate. Again, when the food is served hot or when the food is cooked at a high temperature, it helps the bacteria to either die or so that the pathogens don't stay when you consume the diet, Mr. Smith. Well, I guess I could ask them to heat the meat, or I could also bring home cooked meals to make sure that doesn't happen. And you said to microwave it for a couple minutes until it's 75 degrees Celsius, correct? Yes, Mr. Smith, that's absolutely correct. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about cross-contamination. Now, wet raw meats and vegetables and other foods should never be mixed together. Raw meats, when left outside, can have the bacteria salmonella on them. So it is advised very highly that you use different utensils when working with raw meats. So, for example, if you get chicken breast from the store, you should use a different cutting board and a different cutting knife than you would for your produce when you're cooking that, so that no cross-contamination happens. And then I would also like to show you a kitchen thermometer today. Since we were talking about temperatures, it's not easy to gauge the temperature just by looking at the food or just by touching it. So it is best to use a cooking thermometer or a kitchen thermometer to make sure that your meats are cooked properly. It is a myth to say that, oh, the beef is cooked properly when it releases all the water or the moisture. Sometimes the meat can stay uncooked and release a lot of water. So let me show you what a cooking or a kitchen thermometer looks like. Now, this is what a kitchen thermometer looks like. Basically, you poke the needle through the meat and just gauge that it's in the middle of the meat and check the temperature to make sure that it's properly cooked. Now, you can find these at the grocery store. You can order them online. This is a very handy kitchen appliance to keep with you and use regularly to make sure that your food is cooked at a proper temperature. Now, I am going to give you this pamphlet to take with you so that you know at what temperatures foods should be cooked. All right, this is for you, Mr. Smith. Now, as you can see over here, it talks about the different types of meats and at what temperature they should be cooked. Now, if you do like to eat steaks a lot, you can use the kitchen thermometer, poke it in the middle, and see that it's at 145 degree Fahrenheit. For leftovers, it's 165 degree Fahrenheit. Just make sure that you're checking the temperature so that your food is safe to consume. This is for you, and you can take this with you.